Hello, everybody. Here we are for the Friday live Q&A. It is July 30th, Friday, July 30th. So I'm here like I try to do every Friday at 1:30 to see if I can, hang on, let's get my microphone sorted here, to see if I can answer any questions that you may have about your relationships, about life. Let me know if there's anything that you have questions around, anything that I can help you with. I know that, in Australia currently at the moment, there are many, many people in lockdown, and I know that there are challenges that come with that. I've had lots and lots of emails come my way of people looking for help in how to deal with their relationships in lockdown, what to do when you're kind of cooped up together and you can't escape one another, so to speak. So I know that this can put pressure on families, on people, on relationships. So this is my way of doing whatever I can to be of service to those of you who are struggling at the moment, or if you have any questions at all, this is your opportunity to ask me anything that you want to ask me about relationships, around life, etc., etc. So I have had a couple of people email me in, and I'm just going to quickly go and check on those emails whilst I'm waiting to see if anybody else would like to ask a question, anything they want to know, anything that they're stuck with, anything at all. Jump on, post a comment below, and let me know how I can be of service and help you. No question is too big. No question is too small. This is your opportunity. This is your time. So whilst I'm just checking, I'm just going to check an email that I just got earlier, so I can answer this lady's question. Okay. So a question has come in from someone whose husband is someone who works long distance. So they're only home, they're a fly-in, fly-out worker. So they are only home for a week sometimes, or 10 days per month. And so they're away more often than they are at home. And this particular lady was saying, Fiona, I really need help. I get really jealous, and I overthink and I overworry when my husband is away, and I don't know how to handle that. I'm not sure what to do because I get really jealous, and then I feel like he's speaking to other people or talking to other people. I'm constantly checking on his Facebook page and social media pages, and he feels that I'm being too pushy and too needy. And she said, and I don't mean to, I just can't help it. I get jealous and upset, and then I say something, and at the moment we're at a point where he has hung up on me and he won't speak to me. What do I do? Okay, so one of the things that I think is really, really important, and I said to her I would answer that on today's Facebook Live. And this is a question that I think goes to the heart of many of us when we get anxious about something, when we're feeling insecure about something. We tend to push ourselves in a way that pushes the other person away. And we don't mean to. We just get really hung up on the experience that we're having, and we can't see beyond it. So one of the things that's really important to remember is, number one, when you are feeling anxious or jealous or insecure or worried, and really as human beings, we all go in and out of insecure thinking. We all go out of insecure moments. This is a natural, normal part of being human, right? It doesn't mean there's something wrong with you. This is just what everybody does. And this is something that we're not taught enough about, what is normal and natural for a human being. So people go in and out of insecure thinking or insecure feelings or insecure moments constantly. This is what humans do. It's the nature of being human. Okay? Hey, Karen, how are you, honey? Nice to see you. Hey, Fiona, thanks for joining us. I hope that you're having beautiful weather up there in Brisbane, Karen, as we are in the middle of winter here. I'm sure you don't miss Melbourne's winters. I'm sure you're loving it up north. So it's normal and natural. And first of all, this is something I really, really want to address today, because it's come up with a couple of my new clients that I've started working with this week. Oh, thanks, Karen. Thank you so much, honey. Appreciate your support. People do not understand what is normal and natural for a human being. Okay? For some reason, we seem to think that having upset thinking, being in a low frame of mind, means there's something wrong, that it's something we need to fix, that it's something we need to change, that there's something that needs to be done about that. And of course, what we end up doing is working against what is instead of working with what is. Okay, we end up working against what is instead of working with what is. Now, just that one distinction alone makes an enormous difference on how you show up in your relationships, how you respond to emotional reactions, yours and someone else's. Just that one distinction. Okay, it is completely normal and natural for people to get lost in their thinking. It is completely normal and natural for people to feel insecure. It is completely normal and natural for people to be in a low mood. Like, this is part of being human. And you cannot escape your humanness. But it's interesting to me how many people, sorry, my dog's outside. So it's interesting to me how many people are constantly resisting their experience, trying to escape their humanness. Now, what you've got to understand is that when you are resisting your experience, when you're trying to escape your humanness, you show up very, very differently. You bring a very different energy to the people around you. Okay, and you're generally in that point of time coming from a place of fear versus coming from a place of love. And love doesn't just mean being nice and affectionate. Love is having trust, having faith. Love is letting go. Love is many, many things. Okay, and maybe I need to have a Facebook Live around that at some point. But what we don't realize we're doing is we're inadvertently coming from a place of fear. Now, when you come from a place of fear, fear creates fear, right? Because we're energetic beings and that energy gets matched. So you project fear, you will get fear back. You project insecurity, you'll get insecurity back, right? This is how it works. This is why I say to you, everything is a mirror of you. Doesn't mean it's your fault. Doesn't mean you're doing anything wrong. It's just that the beautiful thing about life is it's constantly giving you instant feedback. Right? It is. The beautiful thing about life is it is constantly giving you instant feedback, but you have to know where to look, right, for the feedback. You have to know where to look for the answer. People tend to look in the wrong place. Then they tend to live out of a reality that's unreliable, and then they tend to project that out onto others. So this is why I come back to the thing that I say every Facebook Live, that when you know how to navigate the operating system of a human being, and our operating system is exactly the same, when you know how to navigate that, everything, and I mean everything, becomes infinitely easier. So coming back to this particular lady's question, right? When you understand how to navigate your own humanness, you will naturally show up differently to feelings of things like jealousy, missing someone, worrying that someone is doing something behind your back, all those kind of insecure thinking that we tend to live out of. Now, when you see that, it will change the way you show up. You will feel less inclined to say those things. You will feel less inclined to push. You will feel less inclined to come across as needy, as frightened, as worried. Okay. And that will create a completely different energy with the person around you. All right. So one of the things I want to point out around what I'm saying is, if you notice what I'm talking about, I'm not talking about how to deal with jealousy. Can you hear that? I'm not giving you a strategy on how to deal with jealousy, because that's actually not helpful. That's very one-dimensional. It's very unhelpful. What I am giving you is an understanding of everything that's going on in the background, so you know how to navigate that and take that with you into the next moment when you feel that way. That's far more helpful, right? That is teaching someone how to fish as opposed to just giving them fish. See, when you have the background of everything I'm talking about, you can take that knowing with you into each and every situation, no matter what the situation is. it was so interesting. I was on a live call with my Relatable students on Wednesday night. I run a live call and we have beautiful conversations on these calls, just beautiful. But each person had a completely different situation scenario they were dealing with. And what was so interesting was the solution was the same. The solution was the same. And so this is what is so beautiful about this understanding. This is what is so powerful about what I'm sharing. It isn't about how do I deal with jealousy? How do I deal with anger? How do I communicate better, which is kind of the traditional approach to relationships. It's let me give you an understanding that is so rich that gives you a sense of knowing that you can leverage off, that you can then take into any and every situation in your life, that you can draw from. Right? I want you to have something you can draw from, a foundation, a platform that you can draw from that you can then take with you into each and every situation in your life. Okay? So that's what this is. And this is why I say relationships can be easy and effortless, because yes, there are different relationships in the world, but the solution is the same. The solution is the same. So once you have this understanding, you can take it into your parenting relationships. You can take it into work. You can take it when you're with your family. You can take it with you, right? You can take it everywhere. And it is an understanding that you can take everywhere you go for the rest of your life. So it's not communication that's the problem. It's not the fact that this lady feels jealous that's the problem. It's her lack of understanding of how human beings work that is the problem. Okay? It's a very, very, very different thing. Very different. This is like chalk and cheese. Okay? So I am a big believer in, I'm going to give you the understanding as the platform. And when you have that, your reality around things will change. Your understanding of situations will change. Your level of awareness will change. But if I just talk to you about how to deal with jealousy, if I just talk to you about communication, that is not enough, right? That is not something you can take into any and every situation. But understanding is something that can be your platform that you can leverage off and you can take everywhere you go. So this is what I teach, which is why I say anyone can do relationships well. You just need the understanding. That's it. It's got nothing to do what's happened in your past. It's got nothing to do whether you're good at conflict or not, or whether you're good with your emotions or not, or what your upbringing was. That doesn't matter. It doesn't matter what the conditions of society tell you about relationships either. The understanding of how we work will trump all of those things. We'll have more influence over all of those things. We'll start to take over the concern about all of those things. It will be the thing that carries you through, right? So as your understanding deepens, everything becomes infinitely easier, because understanding is the leverage point for change. Okay, understanding is the leverage point for change. It's not about the doing. It's about the understanding behind the doing. Yes? The doing on its own is not enough. It's hollow. You can't leverage off that. And if you're just focusing on the doing, then the day or moment, because remember, we are susceptible to moods and insecure thinking constantly. When you're in a low frame of thought, you are not going to be focused on the doing, right? Now, and so it's going to feel like you've made 2 steps forward and 4 steps backwards, which is exactly what people say to me all the time. The doing is nowhere near as important as we've been led to believe. And in fact, the doing is very hollow. If you're just focusing on the doing, you're missing out on about 70% of the picture, right? Because if you're just focusing on the doing, I'm telling you right now, oh, hey, Fee, I'm doing all the time. Okay, cool. If you're just focusing on the doing, you are not going to be feeling as full. Fulfillment won't be there. It won't. And I was just talking about this with one of my clients this morning, that when we don't feel as full, our expectations of others and life go right up. Right up. Right? We place a lot more expectations on the people around us and in life itself. Now, once you have high expectations of life and other people, you are absolutely priming yourself up for disappointment. Expectation equals disappointment every single time. Always, 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 always. And it looks like the disappointment is coming from the fact that someone didn't meet your expectation, when in reality, the disappointment is coming from your own expectation, not because someone didn't meet it. Okay? So as you understand how to navigate your humanness, and remember, the operating system of a human being is exactly the same, you start to bring something completely different to your life and your relationships. It's a feeling of calm, groundedness, clarity of mind, where you feel more deeply connected to the now. And people who feel that way show up very differently to life and others. Now, this is possible for anybody. It doesn't matter how difficult your life is. It doesn't matter, or I mean how busy your life is. Okay, people seem to think external busyness equates to internal busyness. That's not true. That's an illusion. It is. It really is. I know people struggle with that comment, but it's true. One does not equal the other. It's not cause and effect, as much as we are led to believe. So all of these things impact how you show up in your relationships. All of these things impact the reality that you see, the energy that you bring. So when it comes to changing anything, it's the understanding behind that is the horsepower for change, not the strategy or the doing. The doing is the last bit. If you're focusing on the doing first, you're missing it. Okay? You got to focus on the understanding first, and that becomes the horsepower for the doing. That becomes the thing that changes everything else. And so, I find that when we are coming from a place of understanding, because remember, when there is understanding, there is no conflict. Conflict only exists in an absence of understanding. Really? Okay? So when there's understanding, there is no conflict. Now, don't hear this as there shouldn't be conflict or conflict is bad. I'm just trying to point something out that, the only place conflict exists is in an absence of understanding. So as your understanding deepens, conflict goes way down. Your reactions go way down. Your ability to show up from a grounded, calm, centered place changes. And it changes very quickly. You only have to ask people who've done my Relatable program or any of my clients. They will see this. They will say that they have shocked themselves. I have this beautiful man in one of my calls last week share that exact story. He said, Fiona, I did not know. He said, I was always so uncomfortable with my feelings. I was always so uncomfortable that if someone was trying to talk to me, I would be moving around because that was the only way I could actually make myself feel comfortable. So if someone was talking to me, I was not sitting there and present. I was moving around doing things. I was either, I was busily doing things because I couldn't actually be with my own feelings. And he said, I can't believe how easy it is now for me to sit down. He was actually saying, it was quite gorgeous. He said, who knew I could be such a good listener? I'm sitting there now, calmly, quietly, groundedly, and I'm able to be in a conversation in a way I never have been before. And so he was saying that's really made an enormous difference to how he is as a father with his son, and how he is as a partner, and how he shows up at work. And, and he was sort of saying, I can't believe how much lighter and freer I feel. He said, I had so many rules about things that I never saw before, that I was forcing myself to live by and everyone around me. And he said, there's just so much more freedom around the whole thing now. And, he said his relationships have just gone from strength to strength to strength. Yes, Fiona, it's true. We have to be true to ourselves, but a lot of people don't understand what that means and how to do it. Okay. A lot of people wouldn't even know where to begin with that statement. That's a really high chunk statement. And for a lot of people, they go, okay, I don't even know what that means. It's a bit like the statement, you need to look inside yourself. A lot of people are like, okay, what am I looking for? What does that mean? Where do I look? So it's really important that you have the pathway or the understanding to that. Okay. And that's what this is. This is a really simple, easy pathway and a simple, easy understanding where you can do that, where you can honor yourself, where you can feel empowered, where you recognize when you're choosing love over fear, when you know how to navigate your humanness. And once you know how to navigate yours, you can navigate anybody else's, right? Because it's all the same, exactly the same operating system. Okay, so just going to check in. Is this making sense what I'm saying? Is this helpful to you? Does anybody have any questions? Let me know. Feel free to post in the comments below and I will do my best to answer them. I've got to finish up a little bit earlier today than normal just because I've got a client coming to see me. But yeah, if anybody has a question or they want clarity around what I'm saying, for those of you who've just joined us, this is a Friday Live Q&A where you can ask me anything you like about life or relationships. And one of the things that I'm talking about is understanding what lies behind the human experience. And that understanding is true for all humans, no matter whether you're male, female, no matter what language you believe, no matter what language you speak, no matter what culture you come from, no matter what religion you are. This is something that goes beyond all of those things, right? It's something that is true for every human being. And there are very few things in life that are true for everybody. And so the one thing I'm talking to you about is the operating system of a human being is the same. And once you understand that, it's so much easier to navigate your own and anybody else's, which is absolutely wonderful for our relationships. Absolutely wonderful. Okay, you can take that understanding, or what I would call that knowing, with you anywhere and everywhere you go. All right, I'm just going to have a sip of water and check in on where we're at. Okay. So it's really, really important, okay, as you move through your relationships, that you see, and I was chatting about this with a client last night. I think certainly in Australia, where I come from, I'm not too sure about overseas, there seems to be this belief that we should be able to work things out ourselves, that there's something wrong with me if I don't know how to navigate a relationship, or if we're in trouble, that means there's something wrong. And really, every single relationship problem, and over the 13 years that I've been working in this area, every single relationship problem comes back down to an understanding of how to navigate your humanness. Honestly, that's where every problem comes down to. Okay. Without that understanding, people look in the wrong place for the answer. They think that a breakdown in a relationship has something to do with compatibility. It does not. Okay, that's a myth. Relationships do not break down due to a lack of compatibility. Relationships do not break down to a lack of communication. They break down due to a lack of goodwill. And goodwill, when there's low goodwill, communication drops off the edge of a cliff. Okay, so there's no point working on communication if you haven't created goodwill. All right, it just won't happen. You won't get any traction. So you've got to have an understanding of goodwill, and you've got to know how to create it, right? It's not hard, but this is something you have to have in the forefront of your mind. Now, the other thing that I really think is important is you have to see being good at relationships as an essential life skill. Really, we've got to change the narrative around this. Being good at relationships is an essential life skill because ultimately the quality of your relationships determines the quality of your life. Absolutely. Okay. There is nothing in your life that you are not in relationship with. You are in relationship with you. You are in relationship with your thinking. You are in relationship with the world. You are in relationship with others. And so every time you wake up, you are in relationship with or to something. Okay. You are in relationship with or to something. So why wouldn't you want this to be something that you're good at? Why wouldn't you see this as something that is an essential life skill? No matter what you're doing, whether you're a stay-at-home parent, whether you are working, whether you are learning a new skill, whether you're training for something, whatever it is, this is a life skill that everybody needs and is possible for anyone and everyone. We are born to be good at relationships. Okay? We are. We're born to do them well. It's just that if you've not been taught how to understand the way human beings work, you won't realize that. You'll be working against yourself innocently rather than with. Okay? And I often see people working against themselves as opposed to with. And this is very, very, very important. Very, very, very important. Rob, can you provide or describe an example of goodwill? Yeah, sure. An example of goodwill would be, and I actually had a gentleman send me an email a couple of days ago. Let me just look it up because that would help with this, because I was explaining goodwill to him in his email. He was saying that he and his wife has been really unwell and she hasn't been able to eat solid foods, like she'd had some sort of major operation. And he had said to her, there was one particular, he'd come home with some cheeses. He'd come home with some cheeses, and it was the first time she'd been able to eat any form of solid food. So he said she was really, stuffing herself with the cheese. And I said to her, "You're going to make yourself sick." And he said, "I didn't mean to criticize her. I was just worried about her because she hadn't eaten solid food for a while, and she got really, really offended and upset, and she really shut down on me." And he said, I don't know what to do. And I said, well, you need to create goodwill here. And he said, well, how could I create goodwill in this situation? I said, well, you would go up to your wife and you would say, I'm so sorry if I offended you. I didn't mean to. I really didn't. I was just worried about you, and I want to make sure you're okay. And I love you, and I was just trying to take care of you. But I'm really sorry if what I said came across the wrong way. Okay, that wasn't my intention. That is an example of creating goodwill. Now, I know he hadn't done that. He'd been sitting there feeling sick, feeling like it's not fair that she got upset with him. He was just trying to help, and why couldn't she see that? And he'd had all this going on in his head. And it might sound like a simple thing, but when we get caught up in our head and our head speeds up, it doesn't occur to us to just have a simple conversation. Okay? So how else do you create goodwill? Well, if someone is shut down, you would get curious instead of taking it personally. So, for example, if someone's shut down, you'd say, hey, are you okay? And they might say, yes, I'm fine. And you might say, is there anything that I can help you with? And they'll say, no, it's not. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm over here if you need anything. I'm not over there trying to fix. What's the matter? Tell me what's wrong with you. What can I do? Getting all anxious because they're shut down or in a low mood. I'm clear. Right? I'm clear that it's okay, that where they are is okay. I don't need them to be a different way for me to be okay. So I offer, but without rushing into fix. That's creating goodwill. Goodwill might be maybe the two of you are at opposing views around something. And there's lots of that in the world at the moment, okay? There's, lots of opposing views about many things. You might say to yourself, it's okay that we disagree. I don't need them to agree with me for me to be okay. And so you might put your opinion down and just let it go for the sake of creating good feelings, for the sake of being in a good feeling with each other. See, to me, being in a good feeling is far more important to me than being right. Okay? Being in a good feeling is far more important to me than being right. For a lot of people, being right is more important than being in a good feeling. But that's only because they haven't been taught how to navigate a human being. Once you understand that, it no longer makes sense. Okay? So I am checking in with myself. Am I contributing to goodwill here at the moment or not? And it's even when you go to criticize something. I was working late last night. My husband was in charge of dinner. I went inside to check on what was happening. And, he'd made his version of, we were having smoked salmon pasta for dinner. He'd made his version of smoked salmon pasta, which was not mine. And I noticed that there on the tip of my tongue was to say, oh, I wouldn't do it that way. And I went, stop it, Fiona. Put your ego back in the box. Stop. Be grateful. And I just said, thank you so much for doing that. That looks lovely. Why? Because goodwill matters to me more than correcting someone else, throwing my opinion where it's not been asked for or warranted, which is what people do all the time. Now, when you create goodwill, people communicate beautifully. Communication is not a problem. Communication only is a problem when there is no goodwill. And unfortunately, people are quite poor at creating it. And I'm not saying it's anybody's fault. This isn't about right or wrong, but they really are. Because we are very addicted to being right. We fault find without realizing it. We feel like we have something to prove. A lot of people do. Okay? A lot of people feel like they have something to prove. That's your stuff. They're your insecurities. That's up to you to sort out. It's nobody else's job to fix. That's yours. Okay? So you have people who come from that place, and so they take things very personally. They overreact. They defend. They judge. And they project. Okay? Now, I promise you, this is very important. And I say this from bitter experience because that was me. As I joke to my clients all the time, and it's quite pertinent right at the moment because we are in the Olympics. The Olympic Games are on. If there was an Olympic gold medal for self-righteousness, the Australian national anthem would have been on repeat because I would have won every time. I was so good at self-righteousness. I was so good at being on my high horse. And I can tell you right now, it's a pretty lonely place to be. Yeah, you feel pretty significant, but it's not very satisfying and it's pretty lonely. Okay? And it destroys goodwill. Absolutely destroys goodwill. Now, here's the problem when you destroy goodwill. Oh, thank you, Rob. I appreciate that comment. I really do. Here's the problem when you destroy goodwill. People start fault finding. They do. They fault find. When there's no goodwill, people fault find. And this is what an example of fault finding is. I've told you 100 times to pick up the towel off the bathroom floor. I've told you. Why do you do that? Do you do that just to bug me? Is that like something you just do all the time? Like, why do you do that? You know it bothers me and you just do it anyway. What's the matter with you? That kind of conversation. Putting the glass on the sink is not putting it in the dishwasher. I told you last night that we were out of milk. This is what people do. And then you wonder why people stop being nice to each other, right? You wonder why people stop sharing, stop talking. Well, why am I going to open my mouth if I'm just going to be shut down? Why would I open my mouth if I'm going to be made wrong? Why am I going to open my mouth and then be made to feel like I'm not enough? Okay? This is what we do, and we don't realize we're doing it, right? Really. And if you are doing that, don't beat yourself up. I was doing it. It was just a lack of understanding of what was going on within me not knowing how to navigate me. You have to know how to navigate you, right? You got to navigate you before you navigate anybody else, right? This is essential. But we're not taught how to navigate. We're just taught how to fix. looking in the wrong place for the answer. You have to know how to navigate you first and foremost. You navigate you, you can navigate anyone or anything. Okay? This is what I teach. And this is why people find it life-changing, because all of a sudden they have a completely different reality of themselves, of life, and of other people. And they realize that they are capable of things they didn't realize they were capable of, such as staying calm, feeling grounded, being present, listening, having a clear mind, feeling empowered. Actually feeling good. Feeling good. So you must know how to do that first. So this is why if I'm ever working with a couple or a family or a team, doesn't matter, it's the same thing. I teach them this understanding first before we look at any problem. Because once you have this understanding, the problems look different. It's not the same problem. It's completely different. Okay? So this understanding is the leverage point for change. And so you then handle problems completely differently, from a different flavor, a different energy, which has a very, very profound impact on you and the people around you. So as someone who used to be more addicted to being right, I don't care anymore. I could care less, because I know how good I can feel, and I know how good I can feel with my husband or my children or with anyone. And I'll take that feeling every goddamn day of the week over being right or winning or proving myself or justifying my actions. Every day of the week, like hands down, no contest. So once you get a sense of how good that can feel, you just want more of it, right? Now, when you know what is possible and you've got a sense of it, it becomes really easy to choose something else. Really easy. You go to get angry, you go to criticize, you go to say that thing, and you just go, yeah, no, thanks. I don't want to. I don't want to live in the feeling of that. I don't have to. Easy. This is where relationships become easy and effortless and simple. So the whole narrative out there that relationships are hard, that they take a lot of work, that you have to be committed to this, that's not true. And it's a narrative that needs rewinding and changing. It doesn't have to be that way. And again, I'm going to come back to this thing I say all the time. When you understand how to navigate a human being, then everything becomes easier. Now, I know a lot of people ask me, how can I find out more about that? Well, you find out more about that through my online program, Relatable. Okay, I teach that I teach this in my online program, step by step, how to navigate this, how to do this. And this is where people tell me all the time that it's the greatest thing that they've ever done. Why? Because they're learning something that they haven't learnt before. Okay, they're learning something that they haven't learnt before. It's very, 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 very important. Okay, very, very important that you know how to do this. Very important. Okay, very important. When you know how to navigate your humanness, you can navigate anything, any situation with anyone. I promise you it's true. Okay, you start creating goodwill instead of worrying about communication. Believe you me, goodwill is a much nicer place to start than trying to worry about communication, which is complicated and full of a lot of technical information that doesn't actually help. All right, now I'm just going to check in if anybody's got any comments around that. Anybody has any questions? Yeah, feeling good about yourself sends ripples. Absolutely, Rob. It sure does. Feeling good about yourself sends ripples. But it sends ripples into places you cannot even imagine. Okay? It's not just about the next person. It's the next person and the next person and the next person and the next person. So I'm at a point now where it's not just about me creating goodwill between my husband and I. It's about me creating goodwill everywhere I go, because I know the ripple effect of that. When someone else feels good, the people around them feel good. When the people around them feel good, the people around them feel good, and the people around them feel good, and on and on and on it goes. That is the power you have. Yes, it is. It's online, Rob. You can. What time zone are you in? It's online, absolutely. It's an 8-week program online. I do run group calls twice a week on a Monday morning for my students in the US and Canada. So that's 5 p.m. 5 p.m. Pacific on Sundays for my students there. And I also run it at 7:30 on a Wednesday night, which is 10:30 UK time. And okay, so the Monday morning call, which would be Saturday, I think it's 5 p.m. Pacific and 8 p.m. Eastern, and that might be, I'm still getting to know all the time zones, 6 p.m. Central. So yeah, I have lots of people in the US and Canada who do it, jump on the live calls, and the private Facebook group is extraordinary. The community in there, it'll blow you away. Lots of men, lots of women in the group, and the shared wisdom in there because they have this understanding and they're looking in this direction, and the differences in their lives with their children, their partners, at work, within themselves is extraordinary. Like, if I could just show you, and I can't because I'd be betraying people's privacy, what was in that Facebook group, it brings me to tears, just what people are saying, what people are putting down, the mental load. So if you want to stop overthinking, this will help you. If you want to have a greater relationship with you, this will help you. If you want to feel a greater sense of calm, ease, flow, clarity, this will help you. And when you bring all of those things to your relationships change in ways you cannot even begin to imagine, and it becomes effortless and easy. Okay. Hey, Vanessa. Yeah, Vanessa would know. She's part of the team with Relatable and part of the program. And yeah, she's a big part of the Facebook community. Oh, hey, Maz. Yes, here's someone else. I'm in that group. We are like a family, so much love and support for each other. So yeah, I know Maz has made a beautiful friend in Carly, all the way in Canada. So, and Maz is in Australia. So yeah, the community is just beautiful. And this is a very unique conversation that you won't find anywhere else. And that's what I love about it. It's unique. It's different. People are championing each other, and they're coming from a place of understanding and wisdom. And I think the beautiful thing about it's another one. Hey, it's my Relatable peep showing up. Hey, Kirsten, another lady who's in the group as well. When people show up from this understanding, magic happens. Magic happens in ways you can't imagine and you can't have foreseen. It really does. And this is what we see all of the time in the community and on the group calls. Okay, so just to kind of wrap up what I have said as we get to the end of today's live. It's not the doing that matters. Oh, I was just referring to you, Empo. Empo is the man I was just talking about. I was referring to you before, Empo, when you were talking about the fact that that you were sharing on a group call a couple of weeks ago, right? That you were struggling to be present with someone, that you always had to be busy doing things, right? You were sharing that, and that one of the things you've seen for yourself is how you can sit there calmly and be present with someone, and you didn't know that was possible for you, right? I was just sharing that. I hadn't shared your ping pong story, but I shared that one, which I think is so gorgeous, about what you've seen for yourself, and that you've amazed yourself about how you're such a good listener. You didn't think you could be. So I just love that. Hey, Richard, nice to see you. Yeah, you've tuned in. Nice to have you here. So it's my pleasure, Rob. I'm glad that you found this really helpful. So just to finish up before I go because I've got a client on their way to see me. It's the understanding of how we work as human beings that is the leverage point for change. And it is a lack of understanding of how we work that destroys relationships. It's not a lack of communication. Communication is a result of a lack of understanding. It's not a lack of compatibility that destroys relationships. It's a lack of understanding how we work, which makes it look like compatibility is the problem. Okay? But you don't need to be compatible. You don't need to be on the same page. You don't even need to have the same values. All of that stuff is noise and complicated and gets in the way. Right? You don't have to have overcome the past either. Another myth. There's so many myths out there, right? You just need to understand the way we work. When you have that understanding, it trumps all of that stuff. It's like, you know, when you go bowling and the bowling ball goes down the lane and then knocks the skittles over, all those skittles get knocked over. They no longer become relevant. They no longer are important. And you then have a completely fresh, clean slate. And you can have a fresh, clean slate with anyone, anytime. This is what's possible. Okay, everybody, thank you so much for being on the call. I will be here at 1:30 p.m. next Friday, both on my private Facebook page. Oh, sorry, not my private Facebook page, my business page, and on YouTube. So if you have any questions, please send them to hello at Fiona Lukes, which I'm going to type down below, hello at fionalukes.com.au. Please type them. Please send them to that, hello at fionalukes.com.au, and I will answer your questions live. If you do not want your name mentioned, I won't. I will protect your privacy. But if you have a question, send it to me via email, and I will answer it next Friday on my Facebook Live. Until then, thank you, everybody. If you want to know more about Relatable, my online program, the link is in the chat. There are people online at the moment who have done Relatable, so feel free. If you want to ask them a question, I'm sure they will happily answer it for you. Thank you so much, Sandy. I really appreciate your comments and your support, and I really hope that I've been of service to you all today. Take care, everyone. See you next week.